K9 attack. The command thundered through the park, and everyone froze that a police dog, muscles tense, eyes locked, was about to strike an old man sitting alone on a bench. The man didn't flinch. He simply whispered, "Easy boy, it's me. You remember me, don't you?" What happened next silenced the entire unit. Instead of attacking, the K9 whimpered, ran forward, and buried his head in the man's chest. Trembling, officers lowered their weapons. Stunned, the handler shouted again, "Shadow, stand down." But the dog refused to move. Tears filled the old man's eyes as he removed a faded photo from his jacket. A soldier and this same dog, years ago. The truth hit everyone at once. He was the K9's former handler. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. It was a calm afternoon in the city park, children playing, leaves rustling, and sunlight dancing across the pond. Everything was peaceful, until someone made a call that would change everything. Suspicious old man on a bench, the report said. Looks homeless. Has a dangerous dog with him. Minutes later, 3 patrol cars rolled in. Officers stepped out cautiously, hands resting on their holsters. On the bench sat an elderly man in a faded military jacket. His hair was silver, his face weathered, but his eyes carried the weight of 1,000 memories. Beside him sat a massive German shepherd, calm and alert. The dog wore a tattered police K9 vest, one that looked far too old to be in service. The man gently fed him small pieces of bread, whispering softly as if talking to an old friend. "Sir," one officer called out, "we need to ask you a few questions." The man didn't move. His hand rested protectively on the dog's neck. Another officer frowned, noticing the worn tag on the dog's collar. He radioed in the number, and the response sent a chill through the team. "Dispatch to Unit 12. That K9 is listed as deceased." The park fell silent, and for the first time, even the dog looked afraid. The officers exchanged uneasy glances. How can a dead K9 be sitting right there? One whispered. The old man didn't move. His hand stayed steady on the dog's back, his eyes fixed on the water like he hadn't heard a thing. But the tension was growing. People nearby started filming. A few kids were ushered away by their parents. "Sir," the lead officer shouted, "put your hands where we can see them and step away from the dog." Still nothing. The dog growled low, a protective rumble that made every officer's finger tighten on their trigger. "Control your animal." One yelled. That's when it happened. The command no one ever expected to hear. "K9, apprehend." The German shepherd's ears perked. His muscles tensed, but he didn't move. Instead, he turned his head, slowly, toward the officer who gave the order. His eyes flickered with confusion. "Apprehend." The officer barked again, louder this time. But the dog just whined softly and looked back at the old man. Then, to everyone's shock, he walked toward him, not to attack, but to rest his head gently in the man's lap. The old man smiled faintly, tears glistening in his eyes. "It's okay, boy," he whispered. "You don't have to fight anymore." And for the first time in their careers, the officers lowered their guns. The park was frozen in disbelief. No one dared to move. The officers stood in silence, their weapons lowered, as the old man gently stroked the dog's head. Finally, the sergeant spoke. "Sir, who are you?" The old man looked up slowly, his voice raspy but steady. "Name's Henry Walker," he said. "U.S. Army, retired." He reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out a folded, weathered photograph. The edges were torn, the ink faded, but in the picture stood a younger Henry, in uniform, proudly holding the leash of a German shepherd, the same face, the same eyes, the same dog. "That's not possible," one officer whispered. "That K9, Shadow, was declared dead 8 years ago. Explosion in Afghanistan." Henry's lips trembled. "That explosion separated us," he said softly. "They told me he didn't make it. I searched for months, but I never found his body." The officers exchanged glances, half skeptical, half awestruck. Henry looked at the dog beside him. "But I knew," he said, his hand trembling as it rested on Shadow's head. "A bond like ours doesn't break." He found his way back, just like he promised. Tears streamed down his cheeks as he whispered, "You came home, boy. You really came home." And for a moment, not a single soul could breathe. The officers still couldn't believe what they were seeing. An old war dog, one they had records of being dead, was now alive, sitting beside his original handler, Tio Verify. The department's K9 trainer was called to the scene. He arrived minutes later, his voice firm but uncertain. "Let's test him," he said. The trainer snapped his fingers. "Shadow heel." "Nothing." "Shadow sit." Still no response. The dog didn't even glance his way. He stayed pressed against Henry's leg, breathing calmly. Tail still. Then Henry whispered gently, "At ease, boy." Instantly, the dog sat beside him, alert but relaxed, the perfect obedience of a trained soldier. The crowd gasped. The trainer's mouth fell open. He responds only to you," he stammered. Henry smiled faintly, tears welling. He never forgot who his real partner was. The officers began to understand. Shadow had been found wounded overseas, rehabilitated, and retrained, but somewhere deep inside, he had never stopped waiting for the man who saved him all those years ago. Henry leaned down, pressing his forehead against Shadow's. "I thought I lost you forever," he whispered. Shadow wagged his tail softly, letting out a small whine, a sound that carried years of love, loyalty, and reunion. And suddenly, everyone watching realized this was no ordinary bond. This was family. For a moment, the park was silent. Only the wind moved through the trees. Then came the voice of the commanding officer, quiet but firm. "Mr. Walker, technically, this K9 still belongs to the department. We can't just—" Henry's face fell. His hand froze mid-stroke on Shadow's fur. "You've already taken him from me once," he said softly. "Please, don't do it again." The old man's words hit harder than any order. The younger officers shifted uncomfortably, guilt written across their faces. Shadow whined, pressing closer to Henry's leg, as if understanding every word. "Sir," one young officer spoke up, voice trembling. "With respect, that dog has already made his choice." The commander hesitated, his eyes flicking between the man and the dog, one broken by time, the other by duty, both still standing together. Finally, he sighed and lowered his cap. "You're right." He turned to Henry, his tone soft. "He's yours, always was." Henry's eyes filled with tears. He saluted the officer, his hand shaking. "Thank you, son. You just gave an old soldier his heart back." The officers lowered their heads as the two walked away, man and dog, side by side, bound not by law, but by love. The story of Henry and Shadow spread like wildfire. Within days, news stations, veterans groups, and animal organizations shared their reunion, calling it a miracle of loyalty and love. Weeks later, the police department held a ceremony to honor the duo. Cameras flashed as Henry stood proudly in his old uniform, Shadow sitting tall beside him, tail thumping against the floor. The police chief stepped forward, holding a small plaque. "For courage, loyalty, and a bond that defied time," he said, voice breaking. "We honor Sergeant Henry Walker and K9 Shadow." Applause filled the hall. Even the toughest officers wiped tears from their eyes. After the ceremony, Henry returned to the same park where it all began. The sun dipped low, painting the pond in gold. He sat on the familiar bench, Shadow's head resting in his lap. "You waited for me, didn't you, boy?" Henry whispered, his voice trembling. "All these years, you never gave up." Shadow lifted his eyes, tail wagging gently, as if to say, "Never." Henry smiled through his tears. "Then neither will I." As the camera panned away, the two silhouettes remained, the soldier and his dog, together again, proving that real loyalty never dies.